Really?
Hello, Bev.
Hi, Mark. Nice to see you.
Good. Nice to see you too. This seems awfully dark here.
You're doing better than I am, I think.
Well,
That's not gonna work. Mm,
there we go.
let's do this.
There we go.
Better.
Oh,
So
So-
which college are we at today? I forgot.
this is online, so we are taking people from multiple colleges, actually.
Oh.
Jake, are you there?
Yep.
Jake is there.
Hey,
That's
how's it going? Hi, Dr. Hey, my name is Jake Atho. I work
Jake?
with Mark on the patient teacher registry for BMP genetics. And then I also work with Julie at Rare New England, kind of as an operational assistant / manager role.
So
I was the eyes and ears above all things tech on this call.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, because
Pay no attention to the
I'm-
mystery curtain.
I'm already on my smaller screen because I can't get Zoom to work on my laptop, but that's a long-standing problem.
Okay, no worries.
So do we know who, where the people are coming from that are joining in tonight?
Yes, let me pull up. I have that in a document. At least they were supposed to include. So we have Penn State, UMass Amherst, University of New England, University of Massachusetts, Weston, Penn State, and Medic Club Medical Center, and then 2 from Wellesley,
You know where
Cool.
Medic Club is?
Georgia,
Yes. Do you know which Georgia?
BMP.
No, the Republic of. Not
Oh,
the-
no kidding.
Oh,
Yes. I actually went there and taught there about a few years ago. But yeah, Medic Club in Tbilisi. They were very, very nervous when Russia invaded the Ukraine because after the Soviet Union fell apart, Georgia was the first country Russia invaded to take back, parts of its territory. So they were very, very nervous. So the fact that they're getting out and attending is a good sign, I guess.
Hope so.
interesting. Are they they're in the US then right now? Or are they phoning in from Georgia?
I think they're phoning in from Georgia, which means
I just checked, it's 2 a.m.
it's 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. That is incredible. Well, there is one person there. She's very, very nice. She's a pediatrician who focuses in metabolism. And her name, unfortunately, is spelled Nazi.
I saw that.
And she says, the first thing she always says is, my name is Nazi. And and she's carried that all her life, which is unfortunate, but she's very, very cool. She is the metabolic force in Georgia.
Cool.
It is. In fact, she came the year before COVID, she came to Boston to attend a conference. And so we went out and I said, so would you like to go out to a restaurant? And she said, no, she has never had the opportunity to taste fake meat. And could I take her and taste like an Impossible Burger? So we went to Burger King right across the street from the Boston Common. We sat in Boston Common and had a milkshake and It's at a classic American fair. It was
Right.
cool.
Wow.
So Lisa Braley of Mount Sinai in New York, she's a laboratory geneticist. She will be joining us as well. Bev, we'll start off with you. I'll
Okay.
do an introduction, then I'll introduce you, and then Lisa and I'll go last. And then there'll be a Q&A. Right before the end, I go through some opportunities for the students to get more information about a genetics career, whether that is talking with a geneticist 101, what is that, whether that's doing an in-person elective, whether that's participating in the ACMG Summer Scholars Series, Summer Scholars Program, and so on. Are you, Bev, are you going to be showing slides or no?
No.
Okay, some people do and some people don't. Okay, that's fine. Lisa doesn't, and I'm not going to be doing that either.
Sorry, I'm moving locations, as I'm sure you can tell.
That's right. Yes. All right, so battery nightmare. Okay, that's fine. So you can see that, Jake?
Yep.
Perfect.
Oh, great. I get to see it live.
Let's see it live. That's right. Yes. Okay. Terrific. Now, one thing about Lisa is I don't have an up-to-date bio on her, and I've asked her to tell me what she's actually doing at Mount Sinai. Because in the bio on the website, she's still in Pennsylvania. Assistant professor and associate director of tumor cytogenomics. Okay, that's good. Actually, Jake, do you have the ability to make alterations on the RNE website?
Yes.
All right, so then I will send this to you as well.
Thank you.
She is currently assistant professor.
Mark, is it okay if I have a cat in the middle of this?
A cat,
Yeah.
as in like a four-legged animal? Absolutely.
Would that be too distracting? Because
No,
she's like having fits outside the door.
it is what makes COVID and Zoom humanizing. I'll never forget that shortly after COVID began, and I was listening to NPR, and and this was a well-known announcer, been there, and he is doing his show, and in the middle, his son comes up and says, "Daddy, Daddy," and he continues to talk, and Daddy, what's the password? And he interrupted his talk and said, "Welcome to broadcasting during COVID." And
Yeah.
so I think it's cool. Cytogenomics, okay. All right. Tumor associate. So, oh, yeah, I can't, I'm not going to send this on the chat because I'll send it to you by email. Okay. All right. Is anybody here yet? Can't hear you.
Sorry, it looks like there's one person. I just spoke with Hannah. She said she was asking if I sent it out, and I forwarded her the email that I sent out to the registered participants.
Okay. All right, Lisa is signing on now. Well, what happens if we don't, what's our minimum to go live?
Do you have 0, 1? How many do you have?
Yep.
Looks like one that isn't a part of RNE. She said, though, that it went to her spam folder.
You know, one thing that I'm learning is if you send out things in a group, and if the group is larger than 9 or 10, some emails, some institutional systems will automatically send it to spam. And so it's useful to send it out in very small groups.
Hi, Bev. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Thank you. It's been a while.
Oh,
Where are you
Georgiana.
where is Bev these days? Where are you?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Okay, I'm Georgianne Arnold and I am on my phone because it won't let me in on my computer. So I'm going to reboot my computer and see if it lets me on if I do that.
Hi, Georgianne. It's Lisa Braley.
Hi, Georgianne.
Hey,
You know who that is.
yeah.
Okay, we have Georgianne here. That's cool.
And where's Bev these days? Tell me about yourself, Bev.
Sorry, I couldn't get the mute button. I'm still at UMass. I'm in the
Yep,
same
okay.
place I've been.
Yep.
So
That's what I
Um,
figured.
yeah, growing the group.
Gotcha.
So
All right, so folks,
I'm fine either way. I worked really hard to get here on time, but I'm okay.
all right, well, we have one person really in the audience.
You guys decide, it's your event.
Mark, are people typically on time for this?
Usually within 5 minutes.
So who is the audience today?
One person.
I mean, med student, college, undergrad, what?
Mark, do you know what sort of person this is?
I don't know. I don't know by name. Jake might be able to say. Oh, Samantha is a medical student. All right. What do we think? One second.
It's okay
Um,
either way.
I-
It doesn't make that much difference if I talk, because I always feel like I'm talking to nobody. I can talk
I
to
would-
nobody
To
of one or
Samantha.
nobody of 10.
I am more than happy to talk to Samantha directly.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
To make it
All
worth
right.
her while.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very, very nice to postpone, but it really doesn't make that much difference since we're not,
Okay.
it's not like we're standing in front of an audience of one feeling stupid.
All right, then you know what? Let us give, let us present to Samantha. She's a medical student. She is considering her future. So let's do that. All right. Sam, you're with us? Okay, so let me just get started. I'm just going to do a little intro. Sorry. Okay. So Sam and anyone else who's out there, thank you for attending RNE's Genetics Career Fair. RNE brings together patients, family, and providers, anyone who is touched by rare and complex diseases. RNE offers community educational opportunities, creates awareness of resources, and builds foundations for support. And as a rather unique niche, it supports the educational and professional needs of healthcare providers. The rationale being, if you improve the quality of life for healthcare providers, that pays off for patients as well. Tonight's program is sponsored by New England Regional Genetics Network, Homology Medicines, Ionis Pharmaceuticals, Ultragenyx Pharmaceutical, and Vertex Pharmaceuticals. So my name is Mark Horson. My specialty is pediatrics with a focus on genetics as a subspecialty, specifically biochemical or metabolic genetics. So if you think back on your biochemistry, I deal with patients and families who have defects in those biochemical pathways. Now, biochemistry can be abstract and rather dry, but it's that patient contact, that patient story that puts the human back in biochemistry and shows how relevant the urea cycle really is. So why are we doing this program tonight? Because genetics impacts almost every area of medicine. So as you can imagine, there is a growing need for geneticists in this country and abroad. Patients and families need to hear about information about the diseases they have, information to plan their futures, information as a couple with a family history looking to have children, information about effective therapies now available for genetic diseases. And considering that there are more than 7,000 rare diseases, not all genetic, and growing, that's a lot of information that needs to be shared. But the impact of genetics is not just in rare diseases, because genetics impacts how we manifest lots of mainstream diseases like COVID, how we respond to disease, how we utilize medications, what medications are available or effective or safe, and so on. So this evening, you will hear from three physicians who specialize in the area of genetics: a general clinical geneticist, a geneticist who treats patients with metabolic disease, and a geneticist who works in the laboratory. You'll hear a bit about what they're doing, how their genetics expertise has helped to treat their patients and families, and how the experience has helped their own lives. A Q&A session will follow the three presentations. If you have questions, please put it in the Q&A area, and I'll guide you through additional opportunities to learn about more genetics at the very end. But before we start, as is my routine, I admit that I am a nerd because I, like biochemistry. And not only that, but I bring biochemistry into the clinic. But even nerds have a sense of humor. So I'm going to introduce you to the pedigree nightmare, which goes like this. Many, many years ago, when I was 23, I was married to a widow who was pretty as can be. This widow had a grown-up daughter who has hair of red. My father fell in love with her, and soon they two were wed. This made my dad my son-in-law and really changed my life. Now my daughter was my mother because she was my father's wife. Now, to complicate the matter, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby then became a brother-in-law to dad, and so became my uncle, though it made me very sad. For if he was my uncle, then that also made him brother of the widow's grown-up daughter, who of course was my stepmother. Father's wife then had a son who kept him on the run, and he became my grandchild, for he was my daughter's son. My wife is now my mother's mother, and it makes me blue, because although she is my wife, she's my grandmother too. Now, if my wife is my grandmother, then I'm her grandchild. And every time I think of it, it nearly drives me wild, because now I have become the strangest case you ever saw. As husband of my aunt grandmother, I am my own grandpa. Oh, I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. It sounds funny, I know, but it really is so. I'm my own grandpa. Written by Mo Jaffe, Dwight Latham in the 1940s. You can find many recordings like Willie Nelson singing this on YouTube, but this is where you have to go to get the pedigree. So let's put that away, and let me introduce our first speaker this evening, Dr. Beverly Hay. She grew up in California, graduating from UC Santa Barbara with a bachelor's degree after taking any genetic classes they had, which wasn't many. After working in a research lab, Dr. Hay sought a different path and went to Jefferson Medical College in Philadelphia, where she received her MD. After completing her pediatric residency at the University of Rochester Strong Memorial Hospital in New York, Dr. Hay trained in genetics at the National Institutes of Health with a focus on the underlying causes of immune deficiencies. Dr. Hay has been the chief of pediatric genetics at UMass Health for over a dozen years and is an associate professor of pediatrics at the UMass Chan Medical School. Her clinical practice is varied, including the care of children and adults across a wide range of genetic disorders. Together with two colleagues, she launched a dedicated clinic at UMass for the coordinated treatment of individuals with Down syndrome, and she serves on the medical advisory board for the Massachusetts Down Syndrome Congress. For more information about Dr. Hay, please see her bio on the RNE website. Bev, thank you for joining us this evening. Please turn on your mic, and love to hear from you.
Thanks. Well, thanks for inviting me. So one of the things that, just to speak to a medical student, since it actually took me a little while to decide to go that route, I always wanted to do genetics. And actually, I had a really interesting conversation with my mom just this weekend where she pointed out that I've liked genetics since I was 14. It just took me a while to figure out how to do that. So one of the things, having meandered through a couple of different opportunities in genetics, and I really liked lab science, but I found that when I did my training in pediatrics, I enjoyed patient care, and actually a lot more than I thought I would. So I found that when I went back to the lab to do training, I really missed it, and sort of took a different career path so that I could spend more time with patients and families. It is something that I was a little worried about when I first started this career, but is still the most rewarding part of what I do, is to sort of work with families, both in a setting for trying to come to a diagnosis and help them understand that, but also like in the Down syndrome clinic, where I get to see the same patients and families for many years, like a primary care would do. So in some ways, it's kind of a little primary care and a lot of science. I find that I still, as Mark said, I still geek out sometimes, where if somebody has a result and I'm trying to sort it out, I'll spend some time sitting on the couch looking stuff up, because that's what drew me to genetics, was to try and figure out, why is it like this? Why does this gene do that thing? Why does it result in what I'm seeing in a patient? And the rewarding part for me is to be able to then take that back to the families and make it understandable, which is not always easy to do. And certainly I live in a community that's pretty diverse. So trying to do that in a way that makes sense to the people in front of me is both very challenging and rewarding. I was thinking back about some good stories, and sort of one of the stories that I've always talked to trainees in medicine, particularly residents, is, to think about how we deliver news and not to judge beforehand about whether we think this is a good thing or a bad thing. And a good example of that was a family many years ago where clearly, if you look through a pedigree and you draw it out, there was an X-linked intellectual disability disorder in the family. And the person in front of me was now in his early 20s and had testing years ago, and they hadn't figured it out. And we provided some new testing because as we do this, we get better, which is awesome. And we figured out what it was that was causing his intellectual disability. And the day that they came in for us to discuss those results, his mother burst into tears and stood up and gave me a huge hug. And she said, "You have no idea how worried I've been. I have a daughter who's now old enough to have kids, and we had no way of knowing whether or not she could figure out if she would be at risk." And so to sort of take those moments when, sometimes we think, well, maybe what I'm saying about this person who's affected isn't positive, but there's lots of different ways that it can be carried through families to be helpful. And that's one of the things that I really like about being able to take that scientific part of my brain and make it personable and make it useful to families. So that is my speech. Mark, is there anything else that I have left out that would be helpful?
No, I mean, story, how you impact others, how it's impacted you. Would you, knowing what you know now, would you have done things differently in any part of your career?
Think I could have, honestly. I think that I had to sort of meander my way to get where I am to really appreciate what I do. I have been very grateful for the research background that I had because it helps me understand the results that I look at. And I felt like I'm a more informed consumer for that, so that, I can ask other questions about how these things came about based on having known, well, the technology is a little different now, as most of us know, but having done all of that sequencing and things before myself, I kind of know what the pitfalls and the uses are. I think one of the advantages, if you're thinking about genetics as a career in medicine, as a general geneticist, and this doesn't speak to what you and Dr. Arnold do, it's a pretty good lifestyle because I'm not getting up much in the middle of the night. So it allows me a little bit more freedom to carve out the time that I want to have and to be able to spend with other people in my family, which isn't always true depending upon what other fields in medicine you pick.
That's very true. All right. Thank you very much, Bev. We're going to go on to our next speaker, and that's Lisa Braley, who's coming to us from Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York. She obtained her undergraduate degree in biology from Harvard University and her medical degree from the University of Connecticut. She completed a residency and fellowship training in genetics at Yale and is board certified in clinical genetics, cytogenetics, and molecular genetics. She is currently assistant professor and associate director of tumor cytogenomics at Mount Sinai in New York and serves on the board of directors of the New England Regional Genetics Group. She's also served as associate director of cytogenetics at Ameripath or Quest Diagnostics and as technical director of molecular diagnostics and clinical trials at Dianon Systems, both in Shelton, Connecticut. And she's been adjunct faculty at University of Connecticut and University of New Haven. Her interests include DNA sequencing and data analysis, genetics education and outreach, and metabolic disease. She and her husband both reside in Derby, Connecticut, where she enjoys hiking, swimming, playing the violin, reading, and promoting community engagement. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. So I hear a lot of great things from Bev that echo for me, but in slightly different ways. I always thought that I would be really interested in seeing patients, and I love people. But I found that I actually really enjoyed the lab. And that I similarly do like the control over my life that I get. So a big lifestyle choice, that from working in a laboratory, I'm also not on call. I have a very predictable work day. When I was in high school, I worked in group homes for what was then called the Charles River Association for Retarded Citizens, which name is now kind of not considered okay. And I was fascinated because it was like there were 8 people who worked in the house who lived in the house that I worked in, and they were a spectrum of genetic disorders, not all of which were known, like what the cause was at that time. So I've been really enjoying over the course of my life learning what caused the syndromes that each of these people had that I worked with way back when I was in high school. So I was always really interested in what causes variation in people, what causes that syndrome. And so was really fascinated with the textbooks and the coursework relating to genetics along the way. It took me a while to kind of figure out which way I wanted to go. And I ended up doing, at this point, I'm doing laboratory cancer genetics. And it's not such a far reach from people and their syndromes to cancers and what makes them little individual crazy things. The genes and pathways that go wrong, the genes and pathways that direct normal development, when they go wrong, when they have a problem, those are the things that cause syndromes. Those same genes can often are exactly the same ones that, when they have problems in tumors, cause cancer and cause different cancers to behave in different ways. And that's been, so virtually every case is an adventure in a new way that a gene can be differently expressed, a pathway that can be deranged, more to learn about how the human body works. So I have just really enjoyed getting further along into cancer. Every job that I've wound up with has been a job that turned out to be more oncology than inherited genetics. And at this point I've said, okay, I guess I'm an oncology geneticist. So as Mark said, I have worked at commercial labs, one for Quest and LabCorp. And this current job that I have was the first time I've been a professor. So I'm an assistant professor now, and I'm really enjoying the academic atmosphere at the School of Medicine. I have the opportunity to teach fellows. I see the doctors that are taking care of patients participate in tumor board, participate in journal clubs, get to go to grand rounds, present at these various lectures and events. So it's really a pleasure to be in a more academic setting. The commercial labs also there's a wide range of what they can be like. Sometimes they're a place where they just want you to do the work, sign the cases and we'll pay you. But other times they can be a more creative environment where there's test development happening. So I don't think I would make a pronouncement about whether it's better to be at a commercial lab or an academic lab, but I can sure tell you right now, I'm enjoying the academic situation. So I have had a real opportunity to work with different methodologies. We do chromosome analysis, we do fluorescence in situ hybridization, microarray. We're hoping to bring up a next generation sequencing technology for chromosome analysis. And we're right next door to a molecular laboratory that does sequencing and sequencing analysis of tumors and various panels of testing. So I'm getting a lot of exposure to a lot of different testing methodologies, and new ones come up all the time. I always mention that a pathway into laboratory genetics isn't always clear when you come from medical school. There's probably no one who said, very few people are saying, I want to be a laboratory geneticist. People might do that in conjunction with research. A lot of people are PhDs who do what I do, but also MD PhDs. The American Board of Medical Genetics and Genomics has what's called an LGG fellowship, which could be done after any other residency or could be done standalone. It's a 3-year program where you learn both molecular DNA-based techniques and also cytogenetics, more chromosomally based techniques. And there are many programs around the country that probably mostly still would have openings. So when one is trying to match, there would be openings available. I think that's all I have for now. And anything else, Mark, or any questions from Samantha?
Well, thank you
Or
so
after
much.
Georgianne.
Thank you so much. Yes. Let's hopefully we'll be able to get Georgianne on. Georgianne, are you able to sign on?
I am on with audio on the phone, and I see little pictures of people's initials, but I don't see any faces.
We can't see you, but you sound okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So maybe
So
let
I
me
don't
introduce.
know, I was just on a Zoom meeting from 4 to 5, and suddenly
Okay,
I can't.
so Georgianne, tell you what, let me introduce you and we'll hear from you.
Okay.
So I'm going to introduce Dr. Georgianne Arnold from the University of Pittsburgh. She graduated from Indiana University and received a master's in medical genetics from Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis. She received her MD from Upstate Medical University and completed residency in pediatrics at Northwestern and a fellowship in clinical genetics and clinical biochemical genetics at the University of Colorado. Dr. Arnold has been a clinical and biochemical geneticist for 30 years. She is currently the clinical research director for pediatric genetics and genomics at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Her interests are in clinical outcomes research and development of clinical practice protocols. Also, she recently completed 2 years as president of the Society for Inherited Metabolic Disorders, the professional society for biochemical genetics in this country. For more information about Dr. Arnold, please see her bio on the RNE website. Georgianne, thank you for joining us, at least in voice. We're ready to go.
Okay. So I just tried putting the link in my browser that was just texted to me, and I don't know what's wrong with my computer. I'm really sorry. But anyway, I understand that you're a medical student, Samantha, and what you've heard today is that there are many ways to get into genetics as a career, and it depends a lot on your interests. I knew I was interested in genetics from the time I was studying Gregor Mendel in high school, but I didn't know exactly how. Now I'm dating myself here. I picked my college from Lovejoy's college catalog because it said they had a major in genetics, which of course, when I got there, I discovered it was a graduate. And I started in a PhD program in genetics at Indiana University, at Purdue University in Indianapolis, where they forced their graduate students to go to see clinic patients, as well as letting them work in the lab. And what I discovered was that I did not like working in the lab, but unlike all the rest of the graduate students, I was the happiest when I was being forced to go to clinic. So that meant I left graduate school with a master's in genetics and went to medical school. And then I did a residency in pediatrics and then a fellowship in genetics and in biochemical genetics. I didn't expect to be a biochemical geneticist. The mentors in grad school who got me interested in the clinical aspect were what we call dysmorphologists, meaning they studied birth defects. And I thought that was really cool, and I thought that's what I wanted to do. And then when I started applying for fellowships, many of the fellowships said to me, well, we only have funding to train lab people. We'll make sure you see enough patients to qualify for boards, but we won't really make you leave your lab to go see patients, which was not what I wanted. But the fellowship I ended up finding, and actually fellowships are more open now about training clinicians because eventually they realized they didn't have any clinicians. But at that time, it was a little different. And I ended up in a fellowship that was designed to train a biochemical geneticist. And I just got bit by the bug because to me, biochemistry makes absolutely perfect sense. If you strip everything down to the level of the pathway, it makes absolutely perfect sense. A hydroxylase adds a hydroxyl group, and 11-hydroxylase adds a hydroxyl group to the 11th carbon. And like, it's not some big morass of unconnected pathways. If you look at it, it actually all makes sense. I also like it because I get to treat patients. I get to actually be a doctor and do things. So I am both a clinical geneticist and a clinical biochemical geneticist. I do both. And I have to say, I like the biochem more. But there are many paths to get into genetics. And, you've seen people now that you can do basic science research, you can do clinical research, you can be a clinician. There's just so many ways that you can go through it. There are now combined residencies where you do a 4-year residency and it's half clinical genetics and then the other half, it could be OBGYN and then you would be like a prenatal geneticist. It could be internal medicine, which I think there's only a couple of those programs. And most of the combined programs are pediatrics and genetics. So that takes 2 years off your training because otherwise it's 3 years of residency and 2 years of fellowship. But it is, I don't know, I can't imagine having done something with my life that wasn't really interesting. And I tell you, we're getting into gene therapy now. I am actually delivering gene therapy to patients. And it's a really exciting time to be a geneticist. So you should ask any questions that you want.
Thank you, Georgianne. So Sam, the questions are open, and Hannah and anyone else in the audience.
Can you make it so we can hear Samantha instead of, is that okay? Is that reasonable? Usually we get the questions through you. Can we talk with her? Is that crazy?
That's a good point, is because this is, actually.
I just opened it up so that she is allowed to talk.
And can you, Jay, can you open it up to Hannah as well?
Yes.
And so you know what, please, yes, introduce yourself and pose your question directly.
Hi, this is Samantha. Oh, it's
Hey, Samantha.
It's echoing for me, so let me know if it's echoing for you all as well.
You sound perfect.
Okay, great. So I'm a first-year medical student. Thank you so much for all of your information. I really appreciate it. I am interested in genetics. I am also a little bit all over the place now because I'm still exploring, but I really like OBGYN and peds as well. But I wanted to know if anyone had any advice on getting involved in genetics, either through research or through clerkships and clinicals, how to incorporate that through the rest of medical school.
Okay, what year are you in now?
I'm a first year.
First year. All right, does someone want to take that on? Bev or Georgianne?
It's definitely possible to do, I'm sorry, I'm not Bev or Joanne, but
Uh-oh.
Georgianne, but there's almost, if you have a genetics department, it's almost certainly possible to arrange a rotation, which I did when I was in medical school. And I would, which school are you at?
I'm at Penn State.
You're at Penn State, and I don't know anything about what Penn State has, but. And sometimes there's genetics interest groups, or you could start one.
There may be one. Do you have a genetics interest group at Penn State?
Yes, we do.
Is there a geneticist linked to that? Because often there is.
That is a great question. I'm actually not sure about that.
Because with most genetic interest groups, there is somebody linked. And if so, they can set up an in-person elective for you. We also have, I'll show you at the end, we have opportunities for you to talk with the geneticists. We have online electives, so you can get a better sense of some more experience, but we can go through that. The other thing is, well, actually, I think it's too late now. The ACMG does a summer scholarship program, but I believe that the deadline was back in February or March.
She's got other.
However, you are also eligible for the Compassion Project of Global Genes, which is open to medical students, and I can tell you more about that. So what I would say is, if you have, if you want to see genetics up close, can you find out what there is at Penn? If there's a geneticist, if there isn't one, why don't you write to me and we can make contact for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Hannah,
Yeah,
did you have a question?
Okay, this is Georgianne. I'm in Pittsburgh, and COVID has unfortunately put a little bit of a damper on our observership program, but we may at some point be taking observers back to just come in and watch what we do for a week. And so, you may want to keep up with that and just see whether it's something that, could be open for you. And where do you live in Pennsylvania? Your parents live or your home?
I'm originally from Philly, but I am at the Hershey campus for medical school.
Oh, okay. Oh gosh, one of our former trainees is in Hershey.
Oh, great.
Oh my God. I'm having a brain fart on his name. Ermel Alou. So you should, call up and talk to him and just drop by his office or, just go over and see what he has to say.
Amazing. Thank you.
If you're home in Philadelphia for the summer, there's probably also people there you could contact. I know I went to Jefferson and there were geneticists that I worked with at Jefferson. It's been a little while though, but I'm sure that there would be people in that area you could reach out to if you had summer open, any opportunity.
Yeah, we always have, between my first and second year of med school, I set up a job with actually a pediatric gastroenterologist, which I did not go into gastroenterology, but she applied for a work study student and I applied for a work study job for the summer. And so I did research for her for the summer, clinical research. So that, you can, Ermel's young, he probably doesn't have money for a work study student, but you never know. There may be, if you want to volunteer, that people usually have lots of chart review research projects that need to be done. That can get you a publication, enhance your residency application. So I can send him an email and tell him someone may be stopping by his office.
Thank you so much. That's amazing.
So Sam, what I suggest, if we're going to be doing this, would you be okay about sending us sort of a brief letter of intent along with the CV? And then we can use that to forward that to these geneticists so they will have something about you when you contact them.
Yes, definitely. I can email you all that.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. And then I'll forward those to Dr. Hay. Hannah, did you want to pose a question?
Hi, Mark. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you guys. I'm Hannah. I'm one of the committee members of RNE. I'm also a pre-med, and I've attended most of these career fairs, so it's nice to actually talk to you guys for once. My question, I mean, I have plenty of questions for geneticists, but one of them is, what is your most recent book recommendation?
What kind of book?
Any book. Could
I mean, you
be
mean pleasure reading,
one,
or
could
you
be
mean
academic.
Well, we usually start our med students with a book. The editors are Thompson and Thompson. It's a husband-wife team. And isn't the title just Medical Genetics?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of a medical student level book, but I'll tell you, if you knew everything in that book, you'd know a lot. So we usually have our fellows go back and reread it as well.
Great, thank you.
Any other books?
So unfortunately, I'm trying to remember the name of one that I was given that was very interesting. It was it's a first person story about a genetic disease in the family, but I'm going to have to just email it later because I can't remember the title.
One book that I read over the last year was something called The Great Influenza, which was written about the influenza epidemic of the 19 teens. And it focused on that, but what it really was a history book of American medicine. That before that, American medicine was pretty much wild and based on superstitions, and whereas European medicine was actually developing and becoming more scientific. And so European medicine was leading American medicine. And it was around the time of the First World War that Johns Hopkins became the first European-oriented medical hospital and medical school. And that's where American medicine really began. So it's a very interesting story, and it explains there's some connections with COVID as well.
Great, thank you.
I'll put 3 out there, and Bad Blood, which is about Theranos, the company that Elizabeth Holmes started with basically no good principle underlying her testing. So kind of how a laboratory can go bad. Codebreaker, which I haven't read yet, but my father has really been enjoying, which is about the development of CRISPR. And more of a textbook, but kind of an offbeat one these days, is Smith's Recognizable Patterns of Human Malformation, which is like pictures and a small amount of text about a really wide range of syndromes that you can see in humans. And it's been around for quite a while. So it in some ways it feels dated, but it's like my talking about working in group homes. It's been really interesting to me to see different editions come out. And you see that now there's a cause, now there's a gene. So things that used to just say this is autosomal recessive, we don't know. Now there's many of these syndromes now have causes associated with them. And it's a fascinating look at a wide range of human syndromes.
Great, thank you. I'll definitely have to check those out. I do have another question.
Okay.
I work in a retina setting doing research in inherited retinal diseases. And we come across these cases where we're convinced they're genetically inherited, and they come out with inconclusive genetic results. And then we came across a patient who we genetically tested for the second time, and we did get a hit. How often does that happen in your experience, where the technology finally advances, and you get the result that you were hoping for?
Lots.
I would say
Yeah.
it's happening more every day.
Yeah.
It's yeah. And we still sometimes get variants of uncertain significance that, we have to try to deal with, but the technology keeps getting better and better.
I think also, so one of the things I love about this job is that all of that keeps happening. So there's always something new to learn and something new to find. I think the bioinformatics has been huge in terms of the people who put all this information together and curate it and make it available to the rest of us. That's how I get to sit on my couch and look this stuff up.
Mm. Other questions? Hannah, did that address your question?
Yeah, it was sort of the the answer I was expecting, I guess. It seems genetics is moving quickly.
That's right. And if you don't have your answer today, wait till next year. That's why invariably when patients come back and there are those results, they're always asked to come back, or no results is obtained with exome or genome testing. Patients are asked to come back because the analysis of their test in 2020 may be read differently in 2022, or there may be more to learn. So.
Yeah, thank you for the answers. I think that's sort of the art of medicine, which I enjoy.
Mhm. Other questions?
I actually did have one more question.
Sure.
I forget who mentioned it, but someone was talking about the combined residency programs. This was the first I've heard about it, and I am very interested in them. So I'm wondering if they're becoming more widespread, and also I would assume that they're fairly competitive. I'm not sure if that's correct.
They are. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Georgia.
No, I'm sorry. Were you talking about the combined med peds or OBGYN peds or?
Genetics, genetics peds, genetics.
Yeah.
So
All
yeah,
right, answer for you.
the 2-year genetics residencies are actually becoming less popular, and so there are fewer of them. The number of combined residencies where you do genetics with pediatrics, genetics with OBGYN, genetics with something else is actually becoming more common. And the number of residents that are applying and going through those programs is increasing. I think it went up about 30% from over the last 10 years. Also, for many of these programs, the positions are not filled. So you should be able so when people match, not all people, not all positions are filled. So you should be able to find a position. And in some places they are competitive and in some places they're not. It depends on the program.
And I just looked up pediatrics medical genetics programs, and there's 26 that are listed at the American Board of Pediatrics. So that's pediatrics specifically, but there's a good number of programs listed. You never know what's actually going on with them, but there's or whether they're filled, but 26 programs nationwide.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, any other questions before we sort of sum up? All right, well, let me just give you an idea of other opportunities that you can consider. So additional learning experiences, and you can, again, write to us and we can give you more information about these. But if you want to have a one-on-one conversation with a geneticist, either, a specific subspecialist or a general one, they can answer your questions, but also focus on your particular career interests. Just let us know, send a letter of intent with a CV, and we will match you up with somebody. The American Society of Human Genetics, if you look at their website, they have a section on their website called Careers in Human Genetics, which has information about career opportunities at all levels of the academic ladder, everywhere from undergrad college through postdoctoral programs. Plus, it gives advice for career interest and how to do an interview and how to negotiate your job. By the way, you'll receive this presentation, so you don't have to make notes. So we've talked about on-site electives, which is a personal opportunity to shadow a geneticist. It's a little bit more difficult in this COVID era, as Dr. Arnold said, but they are starting to open up, or they will be starting to open up at different rates at different places. You just have to do it fairly far enough in advance, because you have to get security clearance at the hospitals. For that too, we need suggest a letter of intent and a CV. There are such things as online electives that we have pioneered, where we take a topic like muscle disease or liver disease or encephalopathy or brain dysfunction, and then show videotapes of patients with such problems or their caregivers describing such problems. And we tell a little bit about the disorders behind those. Let us know if you're interested in those, and we can put you through. RNE sponsors a Rare Disease Day speaker series, which occurs during Rare Disease Day season, which is anywhere from around February 28th, but generally from January through March. And at these speaker series at different medical venues around New England, we introduce a patient, talk a little bit about their disease, and then the patient describes the experience of living with that disorder. These are 1-hour sessions, and even if they're on site or on Zoom, you're allowed to participate. Just contact us and we can let you know when those happen. This is our Rare Disease Day speaker series for this past year. So we were at 11 sites through New England, and there is a wide range of disorders that were featured this year. And then finally, the ACMG Summer Scholars Program. Again, this might be moot. It's for first-year medical students, but I believe the applications were due back in February. And then finally, the Global Genes Rare Compassion Project. So medical students are matched with rare disease patients or families. Applications are accepted year-round, and matches occur quarterly. And applicants who have participated are eligible to submit an essay to qualify for a scholarship. Anyway, we'll give you a copy of all these in case you want to pursue anyone. Hey, Georgianne. I can hear you, your mic is off. So we got your video, but we lost your audio. Well, listen, that's progress.
Somewhere down at the bottom where it said which doc you wanted Zoom to go to, screen 1 or screen 2, I had gotten clicked none. So it was, I have no idea, because I had just gotten off a Zoom meeting before this, and let's just say I'm not particularly technically talented.
But you don't need to be if you want to be a good geneticist.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words before we sign off? Well,
I have I just started tweeting genetics questions.
yes.
And in the last few days, and I became more aware of the people tweeting in the genetics world, that there's people from many places who put out questions that could be useful for board study, and also just making connections in the genetics world. So I now have 6 followers.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yes. So I gained 3 followers today, but it's only been 3 days. And
All right.
so but I would point out that there is a world of things out there, and you're welcome to follow me at Lisa_Braley
Oh,
on Twitter.
and the
terrific.
Society for Inherited Metabolic Disorders also has a Twitter.
Yes.
And then we have, what did you say, 900 followers or something? So,
You win, but but yes, I saw SIMD in there, definitely.
All right. Well, thank you all for participating this evening. And thank you to Hannah and Sam for joining us. If you can just help us out here and do a brief fill out this evaluation poll so we can get a sense of what we're doing right and what we need to work on. But we will have some career fairs again starting up in the fall. So if you want to come back, we will welcome you.
And your friends, and your friends.
And your friends, and your friends.
yeah, don't be strangers. Don't be afraid to just cold call people if you get like their email address and tell them you're interested. Don't be afraid to try to get back, with through us, like through Mark, some of the programs he has. Don't be afraid to call Dr. Alou at Hershey. Just don't be afraid. You have to be talented to get where you're going, but it really helps to have a mentor to open doors for you. So working to build some of those relationships can be really helpful.
And if you need our help to do it, please. That's what we're here for. So for those, the 2 of you who indicated Twitter handles, can you write in the chat box your Twitter handle so that the attendees have a record of it?
Yes, and don't be afraid to follow me on Twitter.
Okay.
I have a Twitter handle, but I don't know what it is. Sue Barry gave me one.
Is it you or SIMD?
Well, Sue Barry gave me a Twitter handle, but I don't remember what it is.
Well, then you're not really using it.
Oh, Facebook is, I can manage Facebook.
Yes. Welcome to the 1990s. No, I'm kidding.
I had a summer job in the summer of 1978 before my senior year of college, working at IBM, working on a secret project in a locked room. And at the end of the summer, the boss said, "You're making the prototypes for a computer small enough to have one in your house." Well,
Wow.
in those days, the computer was in a room the size of a gymnasium, and you punched cards and wrote stupid programs to like alphabetize things. And I looked at him and I said, "Why would I want a computer in my house?" And now I have one on my wrist.
There you go.
I have one in my pocket.
Just like the
Okay.
Jetsons. I can't find you. I looked for you on Twitter.
Okay.
Okie doke, folks. Thank you so
Nice to
much.
meet you, Samantha, and nice to see you, hear you again, Hannah.
Good luck, Hannah.
Nice to
Good
meet
luck,
you
Sue.
all.
Nice to see everybody.
And Jake, thank you so much for helping us out tonight.
Thanks, Jake.
No
Thank you,
problem.
everybody. Bye, Mark.
All
Bye,
right,
Georgianne. Bye,
bye-bye.
Bev.
Hi.
Thank
night.
you all.
Bye, Julie.